This is a review of the Edgenuity lesson, radical equations and extraneous roots. So just as a reminder, when you have fraction exponents like this, they go with roots. So x to the power of 1/2 is the same thing as the square root of x. X to the power of 1/3 is the same thing as the cube root of x. X to the power of 1/4 is the same thing as the fourth root of x, and so on and so forth. So example 1 says solve the radical equations. So you can't, in the video I know you saw that there's a lot of squaring and cubing going on, but you can't get this x underneath the radical until everything else on its side is gone. So the first thing we have to do is we have to get rid of this positive 2 here. So the opposite of positive 2 is negative 2. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. Okay, so everything on the side with the radical on the outsides is gone. So now we just have the square root of x minus 2. To be able to get to this x, we need to undo this square root symbol. So what the opposite of square rooting is squaring. We're going to square both sides. Okay, so over on the right, the square root and the squared cancel out. But on the left, you cannot just distribute this square to both parts. This really means x minus 2 times x minus 2, and you have to FOIL it. And then over here we have x minus 2 as well. So first, outside, inside, last. Okay, so what we have so whenever you have an x squared and an x in an equation, you have to factor it to solve it. So I'm going to move everything to one side. So now we have x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0. So we have to decide what two numbers multiply to make positive 6 and add to make negative 5. And then since we have it equal to 0, we're going to set both equal to 0 and solve them. So add 3, add 2. Make sure you always check to make sure you don't get an extraneous solution. So if we plug 3 back in, I'll do it up here. We'll have 3 equals 2 plus the square root of 3 minus 2. So this is 1, so the square root of 1 is 1, 2 plus 1 is 3. So that one checks out, that one's good. So now let's check 2. 2, does that equal 2 plus the square root of 2 minus 2? Okay, so here under the radical we're going to get 0. So the square root of 0 is 0, and we have 2 equals 2. So they both work. No extraneous solutions there. Okay, the next one. The cube root of x plus 8 equals negative 4. So we don't have anything on the outside of our radical, so we need to undo it. So to undo cube root, you cube both sides. So those cancel, and we get x plus 8 equals negative 64. And then the very last thing that we're going to do is we're just going to subtract 8 from both sides. And then if we check our extraneous solution, we would go, so we would have negative 72 plus 8, and then cube root it. Oops, nope. And we should get negative 4, which we do. So the next one, over here I just have like a side example. When you undo fractions in a normal equation, so if I have 1/2 times x, what we did was, remember, we multiply by the reciprocal. We multiply both sides by 2, because half of 2 is 1. 2 times 12 is 24. So you do the same, not the same, a similar method when you have fraction exponents. So you are still using the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2, so I raise both sides to a power of 2. Because what happens is when you have an exponent on an exponent, you multiply them. Half of 2 is 1, so that just cancels out. If we were to FOIL this out, we'll get x squared minus 18x plus 81. So I'm going to add 3x, and I'm going to subtract 45. So everything over here cancels, so 0 equals x squared minus 15x plus 36. So we have to decide what two numbers multiply to 36 and add to negative 15. And that's going to be negative 3 and negative 12. So x minus 3 equals 0, x minus 12 equals 0. Add 3 to both sides, add 12 to both sides. So let's check our answers here. If I plug in, so let's see, 45 minus 3 times 3 to the power of 1/2. Does that equal 3 minus 9? So let's see. Okay, so we'd have 45 minus 9 to the power of 1/2. 3 minus 9 is negative 6. 45 minus 9 is 36. Remember, fraction exponent of a half just means square root. So the square root of 36 is 6. 6 does not equal negative 6. So this is an extraneous solution. It doesn't actually work. Now let's try out 12. Three times 12 is 36. 12 minus 9 is 3. 45 minus 36 is 9. The square root of 9 is 3. So this is the only solution. 3 was extraneous.